Everything is fine here on Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Mike, joined with Greg and apparently James to
Yeah, I'm
talk some
back.
Star Wars. You must be on your dad's laptop or something, or dad's
No, I'm on
account.
my laptop. My dad used my laptop for a work thing, and I totally forgot about it.
That's right. I remember you were telling us last time, but just had to call you out. No, joined by Greg and Dustin. We almost had Zach today, but then his little one woke up. So we almost had all four of us on the same call for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
I told Zach he needed to make an appearance so people could remember who he is on our podcast.
Maybe next week.
That also goes for Greg, though. So it's good to have Greg back.
This is his second one in our last three recordings, I think. So
I think this is my second one this quarter.
Yeah.
Greg's back and his beard's better than ever.
That's right.
Well, that is quite amazing. That is a good beard.
It's not the longest that it's been, but it's there. I'm gonna have to trim it up though by January. Got a work trip in January. I probably got to look presentable for.
Hey, you had a work trip last weekend because you were up here.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah,
I got to see Greg in person this past weekend.
That's right. Yeah.
Well,
a quick
that sounds awful. I'm sorry that
quick
had to happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Quick little trip up to southern Canada, and then I was back.
And we had snow at that point, or did we not have snow? Because
no, I think you may have had a little bit of snow. Maybe it just came. Maybe it came after. Who knows?
Neither here nor there.
No.
But just to call out, we are live, so bring us your questions, comments, everything to our chat, and we'll bring you into our call. Did I already say this? Happy birthday, Dustin.
Thank you.
You did, but it wasn't on air.
Oh, okay. So it was before we actually started going live.
Yeah, 36. So cool. I mean, to me, birthday's just another day. So I went to work, nothing crazy. I'm not like those people that it's my birthday month.
Is that wrong?
Hey, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, right? Like that's fine. It's just
Did you just say yuck anyone's yum?
You've never heard that term?
I have never heard that term before.
Yeah, so when you don't want to kill someone's vibe.
Thing.
Maybe.
Must be.
Yeah. So when you don't want to disrupt, someone's good vibes, right?
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I just had never heard it before.
You can take it. You can use it. Use it. Hey, use it at Christmas. Just say, Dad, I don't want to yuck your yum. And he's like, what did you say to me? I'm going to send my CIA operatives after you for that.
Whenever I hear yuck, all I can think of is Family Guy. I know. Yeah. You both get it. So there you go. No, but we're going to keep this one a little short. We have kind of restricted time frame for this evening. So,
which is probably good, right? There's not a ton to talk about. And, we'd probably be talking more sports or something else, right?
I was going to say, no, we tend to ramble a little.
Go Pack Go. Let's get back in the playoffs, baby.
And by we, I mean Mike. He just goes off on tangents.
Love tangents.
Well, just to talk sports for 10 seconds.
See, here we go.
Okay. I'm 36 years old as of today. I mean, I could probably throw a lot of innings, so I'm a perfect candidate for the Cardinals in their rotation.
Why? Because Sonny Gray is a part of the team now?
Because the average age of their rotation is 36. So I'm just saying, Cardinals, give me a call if you need, I don't need a big contract. I'll do it for the league minimum for you guys.
He's going to be over there like rookie of the year, tossing that ephus pitch.
We signed Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson and Sonny Gray. And then we have Michaelis and Steven Matz. So that's they're all in their mid-30s. It's a bold move. It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
It's okay.
I don't think the Brewers have a single guy on their in their organization, single player that's our age.
Yeah, it's because they're smart and they realize that the older you get, usually the worse you are at sports.
Wait, you did not just allude that the Brewers are smarter than the Cardinals, did you?
I did. They have been for a while, but again, neither here nor there. I respect the Brewers as an organization for everything they do with the limited amount of budget that they have. And they're going to sign that prospect. That's kind of like a record-breaking deal.
We already did.
8 years?
8 years?
80 million?
Yeah. Has the ink dried yet, though?
I don't think the ink has dried yet, but it's happening. It's happening.
8-year, 80 million.
That's a big risk, though, too, because it doesn't always translate.
Baseball's dollars, it's just not. I mean, we signed Steven Matz to a 4-year, $44 million deal, and he has been injured half the time. So that's about the same kind of, range.
Yeah.
And another thing is like, I don't want to beat sports because like about 10 minutes left to talk Star Wars, but a lot of these contracts are insured. I don't know if you knew that, but like especially pitchers, now it's a high premium. Okay,
oh, sure.
Injuries high.
Yeah.
Like those, I mean, they're not giving those contracts out without some protection.
Right. Yeah, so. That's true. Correct.
The Brewers don't have a single guy that was born in the 80s.
Good.
On their 40-man roster. Not a single one.
We have 5 of them in our rotation.
We don't have the money to retain people. We can only build through the draft and hold on to them during their rookie contracts, and then we got to let them go. Which is also why we've never really amounted to anything, because we never pick up those final pieces we need to make a run.
Colin Ray is the oldest guy. He was born July 1st, 1990. He's the oldest one on the 40-man roster. He's 33 years old? My God, man.
Well, here's to the Cubs probably going to be making a lot of noise with our coach now and unlimited resources to get what he wants to do what he does best. So it's been fun. We're going to think now.
technically he's Chicago's coach because
true.
Yeah. He's under contract with them.
Yes, that's accurate. All right. So we will move in to Star Wars stuff. I think the biggest piece of news that's been released recently, I'm sure if you're listening to our podcast, you've probably already heard this, but we haven't really talked about it yet. So Dave Filoni was named Lucasfilm Chief Creative Officer. So he will be planning the future of Star Wars films and shows. He'll be working directly with Kathleen Kennedy to oversee this next generation of Star Wars stuff. I mean, I look at that as definitely a win. I mean, anytime you can get Dave Filoni to like orchestrate anything or lead anything, that is definitely good news for Star Wars fans. But part of me also wonders, is this more smoke than it is anything? Meaning, like, is anything really going to change, or is it just to kind of appease the audience a little bit?
I think it has to change, right? Because the audience is clearly shown that it's dwindling, and they've put out some clunkers. I mean, even Ahsoka, I thought could have used a lot of work, and so.
Well, that's my point though, because Dave Filoni headed that, and it was still kind of, I won't say a clunker, but it wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is.
No, nothing is. Again, maybe it is just smoke and mirrors, but and I think we'll find out next year, right? Because, or maybe 2025 more realistically, because a lot of the products
got pushed back.
Well, but also
have already been produced and
developed. I mean, it's going to take a year for this, for us to see the fruits of that labor. But I'm going to go, as a sports fan, I'm a glass half empty guy. As a Star Wars fan, I want to be a glass half full guy. Even though, I mean, we all love Star Wars, right? But it's okay to critique it, right? And there's been some misses, and I think Ahsoka could have been incredible, but they just missed a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, at least in my eyes, where those misses weren't necessarily things that were in control by Dave Filoni, because Dave Filoni is a storyteller. right? And that's where he excels. And the story that we got from Ahsoka was still fantastic. I just have this thought in the back of my head that it's more smoke and mirrors, that Kathleen Kennedy is still going to get what she wants out of it. To put it a little more blatantly, like an agenda to everything, but still have like Dave Filoni kind of run the storyboard of it. I don't know. Greg, what are your thoughts on that?
I hope you're not right. Just let him go, sit back and collect the riches that roll in with his storytelling ability. One potential, I saw an article on it, is with him being COO, his storytelling may float over to Star Wars video games.
Okay.
And so it wouldn't affect the actual gameplay, but the story that you might get would be a Dave Filoni led story, and potential to do a like Mandalorian video game. So on that side of it, his move could lead to some interesting video games, potentially. So
well, that's good.
Yeah,
and
I think it's great to get his story out there, because having that vision, I think that's what kind of helped a little bit too, was you had George Lucas's vision and then you could go, but it was one vision that moved you. It's like like a company. Yeah, we got our mission statement, we got our vision. Like, if you don't have one singular vision for where you're trying to take it, then it just goes everywhere and it gets haywire. And that's where they got to, where now we're not trying to tell a story and then implement diversity and these other trigger topics into it. It was, well, we're going to do this because this is the hot thing right now. No, stick with what you're good at, and then implement it in a way that is seamless, subtle, but still makes the point that maybe you're trying to make, but in a better way than just force feeding it to the audience and turning it into kind of that that hot garbage that some of the product has been.
Yeah, and I don't mean to sound like a pessimistic, because I do think it's only for the better of Star Wars that Dave Filoni gets this position. I'm just looking at it. I think you'll get less of like those low lows in terms of the products. Like, you're going to get less of like the Book of Boba Fett, or even the drawbacks of of something that seemed like impossible to tarnish, which was the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Like, I felt like it was almost impossible to not succeed in that, and it still kind of fell a little short. But
you know what I think the perfect analogy is?
What's that?
The Cardinals rotation, because they signed a bunch of old guys, and the whole deal was, instead of giving up 6 runs in 5 innings, they'll only give up 3 runs in 5 innings. So that's kind of right. That's what they're trying here, right? They want to minimize the duds.
Yeah, but I want to maximize the highs. That's what I want to do.
Of course you do. Everybody does. Everyone chases that high.
That's where I want to see Star Wars to get back up to. And because Kathleen Kennedy is still under the paycheck of Disney, right? Like,
well, yeah,
they still, and Disney's not going to change.
You're either under the paycheck of Disney or Amazon or Google.
But I'm just saying, like,
I for one bow to my AI overlords.
But I just think that Disney is still going to control a lot of those elements. Like, Star Wars can say,
Disneyfy it, yeah.
Star Wars can say, "Oh, Dave Filoni is now leading Star Wars productions or content." But is he really? Like, is he actually going to get that free reign that he should have? Yeah. If he actually did, the sky's the limit. But I just think, like, if Kathleen Kennedy is still there and Disney is still there, you're still not going to reach the potential that Star Wars can reach. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. I'm not trying to be
tell a story. Are you able to tell a story for the story's sake and
right,
and push
I have to
you
put
know
these
what you
goddamn cute
want.
little creatures in every freaking
Yeah,
episode of everything.
Or do you have to, push a certain story to get, merchandise sales at Disney World?
You know what?
That
They
got
had it so right in
ridiculous.
Spaceballs, that little merchandising. Like,
Yeah,
I
no.
mean, that's 100% true.
Well, and the thing, George Lucas. I mean, think about all the Star Wars merchandise that came out when we were kids, and even like '80s after the original trilogy came out. I don't think George Lucas made the movies with merchandising in mind. Maybe he did. I don't know. I haven't seen that. He was making his movie. That space western. That's what he was doing, and then merchandising came. If you try to force the story to push the merchandise, then the fans are going to see right through it and go, this is crap. I'm not watching. If you tell a good story and then back it up with some merchandise, people will buy the merchandise just to try to remain within that story. And that's where Disney needs to get out of the way, let Filoni do what he does, and not make everything so kid friendly and Disneyfied.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I've got to hit the old dusty trail. It's
Get
been a long
out of
day.
here.
I'm very tired. I woke up early and kind
And
of.
you're old. You're old now, man.
I'm on the wrong side of 30s.
No.
I'm just glad
once you get older than the players on your favorite sports teams, man.
Well, I don't have to worry about that because the Cardinals have signed my age bracket for the rotation.
That's true. That's true.
And we got Goldschmidt. He's 37, so
you're still good till the 2025.
I'm telling you, Cardinals. I'm 36, right? I'm like perfect for your guys' age range. So
that was.
You guys enjoy talking more about Star Wars. I wish I could stay longer. I'm glad I could make an appearance. Have an awesome episode for the rest of the time, and talk shit on Zach while I'm.
Well, thanks for joining us. I'm glad you could
birthday.
at least jump on for your birthday. So happy birthday to you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, I'm going right to bed. So, but
There you go.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Peace out.
Bye.
Bye. No, but just going back to what we were talking about, it doesn't make me nervous, but it doesn't make me feel confident that we're going to get the change we need. I want to see him leading all of Star Wars, like having Kathleen Kennedy's position.
Like that's when it comes to content creation, I want him to have final say. And then on the merchandising side of things, fine, figure out a way. But we talked about it. Season 3 of Mandalorian, towards the end of season 2, and then season 3, why'd you bring back Baby Yoda? Because you needed to keep the merchandise in the stores. Yeah. That was why. And it wasn't a good story. Like that, first season, you bring them out, you could then merchandise them, and it was part of still a good story. That needs to be first and foremost. When Disney has enough reach into other aspects of storytelling, Pixar animated spot, their live action, you can do that. Star Wars, you took a massive franchise and you kind of took its knees out by focusing more on how can we market merchandise, lightsabers, blasters, Baby Yoda doll, everything else. And you're trying to monetize on the back end without actually having a story to connect it. And historically, Star Wars, great story that people then want the merchandise to, collect. I mean, you have it all, you have it behind you.
Wow. For the ones that are watching us right now.
But you don't watch. It's not like you're watching Star Wars because you bought a figurine or a helmet.
All of this back here is a result of the success of the actual content that we received in the original trilogy. That's where my love started for it. So,
yep.
And it was the good stories that led to the merchandising for me.
And when you
And
think
probably
about
the
it,
same for most people.
well, and you know, in our age, the Star Wars merchandise was already out. Maybe not all of it, but I mean, think about it. The last of the original trilogy was released 2 years before we were born.
Yeah.
2.5 years or whatever, you know, before we were born.
Yeah.
Which means that merchandise from the first, you know, Star Wars, you know, from A New Hope, any merchandise from the late 70s or early 80s was already out there, and they were still putting it out in the late 80s, early 90s. But you know, and you may not remember all of it, but did you know, like your earliest recollection? It wasn't, oh, you know, oh, I need to watch Star Wars because I was given this as
Right.
a kid. No, you watched it in that hotel room, and then you know, from there, that next Christmas, I need this.
Yep.
And then it started, but it started because you fell in love with the story. And that's where they need to get to. And I think where you're talking the highest of the highs, that's Filoni's ceiling. That's his potential.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you saw it with the original release of The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
You saw the potential to really get you back up there and go, oh my God, like this is why I've been so excited about Star Wars in the past. The potential is there. Just get the hell out of his way.
Well, even like Rebels and Clone Wars. I mean, well, Clone Wars, I'll say it took me a couple of seasons to truly like feel the potential that it had.
That one, that yeah, but you bring
Rebels right away. I'm like, okay, potential's high on this.
Yeah,
one.
but it was his second go round. He fit, you know, he
Yeah.
learned. But
Yeah.
Clone Wars is a perfect example because the first season or two, it was very kind of cutesy and very much child driven. And it's an animated show, so I'm not expecting it to be, you know, truly tailored to, you know, a late 30s adult. Like that's
Right.
I get it, but there's a difference between tailoring it to a teenager or so and tailoring it to a preschooler.
Yeah. And I know this is a trigger word and we've used it. And I think you can use Clone Wars as an example of it too. The term agenda.
Yep.
Now, I don't want to say like I have a problem with an agenda because I have a problem with like the purpose behind the agenda. Because I think for the most part, all of us, we want those same purposes to come true. Like what they really want in those agendas, we all agree with. The problem is when you put the agenda before the story, you impact the story. And if you impact the story, you're gonna hinder some things. And if we go to Clone Wars, they had the agenda of, all right, we're going to cater this to younger audiences. So that's going to restrict what we can do in the show. And those first couple of seasons, though there were some good episodes in there and some good stories, it wasn't reaching the potential that it could. And then in my eyes, as soon as they realized, okay, this really isn't our target audience, we need to open that up and just kind of be more free, then that's when Clone Wars really started rolling and was like, okay, you got something here. And this is some of the best content that we've seen in a long, long time.
And that's, you know, that's where I was getting at is you can see, I mean, in your own content, you can see how those first two seasons didn't resonate with the audience as well as the
season 7.
Well, think about it though. I mean, there was such a, you know, like an emotional tie, and like the audience loved Clone Wars enough that how many years after the last season did they then come out with we're going to bring you a special
season 7
season. Yeah. I mean, you did 6 and then everybody was clamoring for more. We want more. This is so great, because those last 4 seasons left you wanting more, that they did. And that's what you want on your storytelling. You know, to your point, you know, you push that agenda, you can implement those topics within your storytelling, because they need to be told, they need to be taught. And if you're going to do a younger generation, teach it to them, but it needs to be done in a way that isn't going to alienate, you know, an audience.
Yep.
But and some people will get alienated. I mean, this is a very deep conversation that we're we're not, we
That's
don't need
okay.
to fully go into, because it's where society is now. So yes, you will alienate some people, but the reality is the vast majority, they may be a non-verbal majority, they are accepting of those storylines.
Yeah.
So implement it, but it's the way in which you deliver the storyline that you're going to rub people, you have the potential to rub people the wrong way.
Yep.
And that's where you're saying, and Dustin was talking, and I think a lot of people, give me good stories.
Yep.
And then and a good story with that topic. All right. Yeah.
Yep.
Because if you don't like it, well, then look in the mirror, because there's something wrong with you. Yeah.
You've got to put the story as number one.
Yep.
I mean, it's important to have diversity. It's important to have inclusion,
very much so. Yeah.
And you need to have that kind of stuff. And that's a lot of what they're trying to do. And I totally understand it. And again, it is very important, but you want to put that story first with that in mind. You can bring that all together, but you still need to focus on the story itself. And I mean, I just think of, going back to Disney, like they're doing all these remakes and they're trying to be diverse with those remakes, which is great, but it's not getting the reception that you would want it to. And I think in order to get that reception, you need to have original product, have something original where you have the focus be on the story and you bring in the diverse aspect to it. And then you'll have a better story that is diverse instead of having just a redone story that's diverse.
Yeah, because then you're just doing diversity for the sake of diversity.
Exactly.
And the thing is that you can tell normal, because I mean, that's the other problem, is like when they try to bring in the diversity and the inclusion, it's all right. So in order to bring in diversity and bring in inclusion, we have to attack this other section. I mean, and it's not all, it's just, perception,
right?
Potentially, but that's what it feels is, in order for this side to rise, this side has to fall. And it's like, it's not a zero-sum game. You should be able to tell a story where this, group that historically may have been was disenfranchised is up here. And maybe they're on the same level, maybe they are above, but their story should not come at the expense of another. And that's the problem that you run into, is that when that is part of the marketing, now the diversity, the inclusion gets the black eye, is no longer part of the story, because it's done at the expense. And I understand historically, again, very deep topic, but you should be able to tell those stories in a creative manner that gets that point across of, hey, you can do anything you set your mind to, regardless of bump. You want to do it, go do it. And will there be people in this society that try to stand in your way? Yeah,
always.
But like a fucking bulldozer, gone. Get out of their way. Why? Who's going to tear you down? In order to tear somebody down, you have to be below them. So don't even worry. Just keep climbing.
And that's I like that. That's deep.
I mean, that's but that's where you have to get with the stories, is the stories need to be told. I mean, when you look historically across all movies, TV, it is heavily skewed. Main actors look like you and me. I mean, they're way prettier and that, but
less beards.
But complexion look like us. Right. that's not reflective of what society
of
is.
what society,
So
right?
you need to tell those stories that are reflective of society, but you got to do it. It needs to be done in a like a creative manner that isn't, you shouldn't need to use tearing down someone to raise your character up. Your character should be able to, like tell the story of, of their successes and
Yeah.
focus on their successes. And, anybody, the naysayers, brush them aside.
Yep.
But you don't have to make, at the expense. And to your point, like with the new, Snow White, you can make a Snow White-esque movie without actually calling it Snow White.
Well, look at all.
Think about it. The Lion King, isn't that just an animated version of Hamlet?
Yeah. Well, and most shows like that are just rehashes of older, not familiar stories that they just.
I mean, think about. And this is gonna really set some people off. I know it. It will, but you can see it online. Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all kind of telling the same theme, different, different stories, different settings, different, actions. But overall, like when you're looking at, you break it down on a side by side, they all kind of fit the same kind of story mold.
Well, and that goes back even further. That even stems, what is it, Arthurian? Like the story of Arthur that really
probably, yeah. Arthur and the Round Table.
Yeah. Rags to riches hero, like going from average peon to a hero.
There's a ton, there's a ton of them that they take, they take the story, the outline of the story, and then you make it kind of your own. 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yep.
That's the Taming of the Shrew from Shakespeare. I mean, when you think about it, there's a ton. I mean, Shakespeare, his plays are in like everything.
Well, and there's theories that Shakespeare even stole from someone else.
From before him.
From before him. I'm trying to.
Chaucer.
My uncle, he's a writer and a professor, and he's talked about a lot of this that he stole. I'm spacing on his name, but all of his works are like stolen from another prominent writer. If his time were like right before him, I want to say it starts with a D. It'll come to me at some point, but everything's just kind of a counterfeit of something else for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of it. Yeah.
Which is okay. I mean, obviously those types of stories have shown to be successful and captivate interest. I mean, heck, a lot of us watch reruns of shows we like all the time because we just like certain things. So it's okay to do that. But what we're getting at is still bring some original elements to it. Like, be original with your story.
Yeah. You don't have to be, you don't have to necessarily be your interpretation of the story. Be original with your interpretation of the story. Yeah. Because, you can take, like I say, they could take the general outline of Snow White and they can make it their own. Where, now there isn't really that love story with the prince, but you still have a girl ends up in the woods, befriends 7, whoever, living, off the grid. However you want to, tell your story to get it to where you basically understand that, hey, this is Snow White and the 7 dwarfs, but it's Snow White and the 7, hippies, whatever you want,
Well, but just look at Disney back in the day. Like, even they were able to churn out new stories, almost year after year after year. I mean, it was like a new cartoon, even though it might have been a story that had been in one way or another released. It was still something completely new.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, at some point in the
Yeah, it's
movie
not too.
franchise, not too long ago, we hit a point where it's like, all right, now we're just going to go back and we're just going to redo everything, but change some things up a little bit.
I think people are afraid that, they know, oh, well, people love the Snow White, like that's, you've taken animated and now you just toss live action. Well, people loved Aladdin, so they're gonna love a live action version of Aladdin. No, people loved Robin Williams in Aladdin.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
well, even a lot of the live action adaptations of those cartoons haven't even been that successful. Like any of them, they're never quite the same.
It's not.
And I think another great example, talking about agenda, when you're focusing on the story versus focusing on agenda, just look at all the more recent Marvel stuff. Like you had this span of Marvel, which is also now owned by Disney. I don't know if I should say now. They've been owned by Disney for a while. But you had the like phase 1 through 3 is very diverse. It was very inclusive. It had a lot of great morals and values and like balanced casting, everything. And it was very successful because they were concentrating on the stories, because that was at a time before this whole focus on certain agenda topics.
Yep.
Now we're getting to the new phase of Marvel, and the stories have really been falling flat. Now, you throw COVID in there and that whole situation, I'm sure that impacted things because the money just wasn't there as much as it used to be. And there's other hindering factors to, I mean, we're even seeing repercussions still in everyday life from COVID. But it's more the story being impacted as a result of putting like an agenda first. So at least that's how I perceive it. Maybe I'm wrong, but you just
probably are.
I'm sure in certain people's eyes we're wrong, but and that's fine. That's valid. That we all have our own perceptions, but
I think the problem is, part of the problem is that, and I've brought it up offline. I know we've talked about, you have the loudest individuals out there. I truly believe are like in the minority of the way society kind of views some of these topics.
Sure.
But because they are the loudest, they dictate how some of these studios will make these decisions for the stories that they tell. And then the problem that you run into is, if you put content out there, you put a movie out there and it's directed at one section of a loud crowd on either side of the spectrum, like you get that one section. Well, who have you alienated? You've now alienated the other side, because like the two polar opposites, whatever they like, they're not gonna like. And so they're already out because you floated that way. And then you've also this kind of some may go just to see, but you haven't created something for the masses because you're afraid to offend. So now you're just worried about like that small, like the small, relatively small group that you're trying to not offend on either side. And people aren't, they're letting their money talk, or lack thereof. They're just, there's other things, and people don't want to go, they don't go to the movies as much as they did pre-pandemic. And so when they do want to go, they're going to pick and choose specific shows that they, movies that they want to go see, and they're going to speak with their money. And until they kind of wise up to it and get to tell a good story, incorporate messages, but don't have the message be the focal point of the story. Tell the story, don't preach a sermon for an hour and a half.
Well, and I have to believe that social media plays a large role in all of this too.
Oh yeah.
Because even like just the Star Wars fan base in general, there's a loud minority versus like the quiet majority.
Mm-hmm.
A majority of Star Wars true fans out there are going to enjoy Star Wars for Star Wars. Like we do. Sure, we can critique things. Dustin was speaking. It's okay to critique things. And that's what
wasn't a huge fan of Resistance, but I made through.
And
I have not watched the recent the Jedi Academy or
the
most recent Jedi story.
The kids
the
thing,
animated,
Young Jedi Academy.
Yeah.
I haven't watched that yet.
I have not. Yeah. Kid's still not, she's not old enough to focus.
I'm gonna wait till Jackson's kind of at least old enough to watch cartoons.
Mine's old enough. The older one's old enough, but I don't know that I could get her, focused on that. I need Paw Patrol on TV. Put Paw Patrol on TV, and then she's watching something on a phone. She's like John C. Reilly's character from Talladega Nights. Oh man, how do you turn the radio on when the TV's on? Why do you want the radio on when the TV's on? Like, she likes to party.
That's hilarious.
She sits there, she's watching the phone, just laying on a couch or whatever, and then I go, all right, you're not even watching TV. I'm putting something else on, and I will change the channel. I don't even know that I got to change the channel. I just get the guide up, and she goes, "Oh, Paw Patrol." You're not even watching it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So that's what you have to look forward to.
Oh man. Well, I can have multiple things on at once. That's not going to drive me crazy. That's going to drive Colleen crazy because she's so receptive of everything around her that it's just going to like be overdrive for her. But what I was just getting at is a majority of Star Wars fans out there enjoy Star Wars for the sake of Star Wars. Like they'll enjoy watching it. We're happy to get new content. But what we're kind of getting at and what I'm kind of getting at is in order for that to continue on for generations, you have to have successful stories. Yep. Otherwise, it's just going to end at some point.
Yep.
And a lot of the loud minority people, like there's a lot of people that just want to see Star Wars fail. Like they're sick and tired of Star Wars. So they're going to be the ones very vocal on social media that are just going to tear down everything and, bad reviews on everything. And that's not just Star Wars. That's anything in life in general. So
some people just want to watch the world burn.
Batman, well, the Dark Knight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think where I was getting at. I'm just trying to say that focus on Star Wars storytelling. Don't let the loud minority dictate where you go, which I'm, again, going back to how we started this, I wonder if this announcement is more of a call to all the loud fans. For how long have we been seeing people be like, Dave Filoni needs to own? I mean, we've even said
we brought it up. Yeah. Like
we've talked about it. So is this like,
is it title only or does he actually have?
Right. Does he actually have the control that we want him to have?
Yeah.
Because as long as they're still under Disney and still under Kathleen Kennedy, it still makes me wonder, okay, is this just kind of like throwing a bone?
Yeah. Or how much control does he actually have?
Yeah.
Like, hey, man.
I want him to have as much control as possible.
Yeah. You can create any story you want, but we're only producing the ones we approve. Like now, he's got, he's sitting on thousands of potential stories, but we're still getting the same, Star Wars content we've gotten the past couple of years because that's all that Kathleen and above
Yeah.
will approve. Yeah.
And I would love
what needs to happen.
What?
Elon Musk needs to buy Star Wars.
Oh, we thought we said trigger words before. Now there's a trigger.
Just saying, man. Like, however you feel about Elon Musk, if he buys Star Wars, no
restrictions.
Yeah, like right, wrong, or otherwise.
You get full reign.
Dave Filoni will
have control,
be able to tell the stories he wants.
Well, and I think Dave Filoni also needs to stay in his lane in terms of his forte is storytelling. I mean, kind of like George Lucas, George Lucas, storyteller, coming to like script writing and, things like that just weren't really his strength. Mm-hmm. And that's where it kind of got hindered a little bit. So Dave Filoni just needs to concentrate on story. He is.
You know what he needs to do? He needs to channel Rebels and just do that. Whatever you did here, if you had oatmeal every morning for breakfast, then you need to go back to having oatmeal every morning for breakfast, because whatever you did during that time frame with Rebels, that needs to get expanded.
I mean, I agree. And I mean, even just looking
the storytelling from that, was truly close to as flawless of storytelling in Star Wars as there has been.
Well, and it helps that it was one coherent story that you were following. You weren't trying to pull in many things. You had one story, you could focus on that story, and when you told it, it was phenomenal. And in a lot of ways, I think Ahsoka was kind of the same way. I mean, the storytelling of Ahsoka was fantastic. Like, I don't have any quarrels with that as it pertains to Ahsoka. Anything that I question in Ahsoka was outside of the storytelling. I mean, because Dave Filoni just has that George Lucas mindset as it comes to Star Wars. He's the only one that I've really seen understands it. But maybe like script, even for him, or dialogue or directing isn't necessarily his strength, just the storytelling. Maybe that's blasphemous for me to say, but
but I also think that given his history with Clone Wars and Rebel, like his ability to show that he grew as a storyteller from where he was at first couple seasons of Clone Wars, and then his ability to make the adjustment, and then give you Rebels, and then Mandalorian. Yep. And you see what he's able to do, how he has grown as a storyteller within Star Wars. So yeah, I think to your point, putting him in charge of the overall story of Star Wars that you want to tell is great, as long as that's actually what he has. If he has unfiltered access to tell the story that he wants, then fantastic. Then it's on him to delegate to to good script writers and everyone else that goes into the production of an animated show or a live action show or a video game, and and put the content out there that Star Wars fans are clamoring for, and to a certain extent deserve.
Yep. I just think if you can take the storytelling of Filoni, and then you take all the main wins from things like Rogue One and Andor, which is like, think of like Rogue One, Tony Gilroy, he was the director of that. Like, use the directorship of Tony Gilroy and the storytelling of Dave Filoni, and like, you would have the best of both worlds there.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Andor is a great example of a product that is just produced so perfectly. Like, I shouldn't say perfect again because nothing's perfect, but it's done so well. But it does feel the least Star Wars of like all the shows that we've gotten. So if you bring in Dave Filoni's Star Wars storytelling to it, and then you invest into the actors that, because I think that was really big in Andor. I mean, the cast that you got for that show really helped set that apart.
Dave Filoni wrote all of Ahsoka. Like every episode, Dave Filoni wrote.
Yeah, he wrote the whole thing. That's why I have no problem with the storytelling of Ahsoka. It's a great story.
Yeah. So
the issues that come from it are a little like when the beginning of the show, when we were doing our reviews, one of my things was like just the dialogue between Ahsoka and Sabine was very like pause heavy, and you know it kind of took you away from that suspension of disbelief a little bit. It like didn't seem authentic. So things like that has nothing to do with the story. It's just how it's being brought together in, you know, the production itself.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm getting. Because like it's fascinating, this whole new galaxy that Dave Filoni is bringing in. And I mean, he brought World Between Worlds in. Absolutely fantastic. The Mortis trilogy, or the father, the son, and the daughter, like those elements, so much potential in that Ahsoka show.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, I know we're getting close.
You know, I'm just thinking, like, looking back at like the story, Star Wars Resistance. I mean, when you think like the execution of it and it being very, very heavily kind of preschool,
kid oriented.
Yeah, like that execution, like when you were watching it, but the overall story of it was really kind of a cool, he's the pilot and then a spy and like like that part really, like there was potential, like the outline of the actual story. Hey, we're gonna have this pilot living on this base on in the middle of the water, and he's gonna start spying for the resistance against the First Order.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It's a good point.
But it was the execution. So I think that, but that, is kind of to your point where like, you brought up Ahsoka. The story, the overall story, the outline of the show was really good. Parts of the execution lead you to, well, that could have been done a little better. That, we could have, And I think, those slight tweaks that I would like to see, but definitely tell the story for the story. Don't tell the story for the back end merchandise potential, because you will lose everything that you're trying to do.
Or the agenda aspect, because then you're just going to trigger audiences that are going to, no matter what, push for one outcome or the other.
Mm-hmm. You need to incorporate those, inclusion, diversity. You need to include.
Let it be natural. Let it be authentic, because then it's more real. If it's forced, then it seems not
just
authentic.
Put them in as just naturally there, and and put them in positions of power.
Yeah,
however you want.
Absolutely, because is it really a position of power if you're just having them replace someone else?
Just
no, it's a position of power when they have their own story, their own experiences, their own everything, something new that they can be the pioneer of. Then that's a lot better than just rehashing something and putting another, just inserting a different individual in there. In my opinion, like, again, I don't think we have to reiterate, for like you and I, like we're all for diversity and inclusion. That's important for our world. That's important for everything. And in our eyes, the only way you're going to do that is to be more authentic with it by it being natural and not being forced.
Yep.
Now,
you will always have people that push back because there are shitty people in the world. They're just, not going to sugarcoat that. There are shitty people in the world that, hey, if you aren't exactly like me, then, whatever. But the majority of the people in the world do not give a shit about that, because it doesn't
the majority of the world wants all of us to raise together
because
at the same time.
It doesn't affect on a personal level. So go be happy, live your life. Just don't force it down my throat. I think that's what a lot of people, and that's the disconnect that you get. And that's where we're talking, include those stories because they need to be told, but don't force the story. Don't force that topic at the expense of the story.
I don't know why, but this just made me think of a Book of Boba Fett and how it started versus how it ended.
Mm-hmm.
It started out being a story about like Tusken Raiders.
Yeah.
Which is something new, different. And that was the best part of that show.
It really
and then all of a sudden it's like we went away from that and just like adhered to, okay, we're going to go back to Mandalorian and like invest, go. It's like, no, you had so much momentum
there was
there.
so much potential. So much potential. It was fantastic.
And that, I mean, one way or another, that's kind of being inclusive, being diverse, because I mean, look at Tusken Raiders. They're in that world, they're like a total minority, not even really thought of. And they're looked at as like being savages that shoot at pod racers that have no culture. What did that show do? We dove into that culture and we got like a lot of meeting and a lot of good stuff, and you were taking on a whole new understanding of them. And then we just went totally away from that. And I'm like, no, that was the best part of that show. And they just stopped going that direction. Yeah. So that's what we mean. Like something new, something creative. Go with that. Do that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's what at least what you and I want to see. And I would say probably Dustin and Zach would be on that same boat.
As long as, like we've said, as long as the story is good.
Yep.
That needs to be first and foremost good story.
Which is a good thing that Dave Filoni is now at this position that he says, because then we know at least the story will have some focus and some credibility and reliability on a good storyteller. So that, I know I kind of took it a pessimistic route from the start of the conversation. But again, I want to reiterate, it is great news that Dave Filoni is being put in this position, because it will bring a lot more confidence in at least the story aspect of what we will get going forward. And to Dustin's point, like the Acolyte show and Skeleton Crew, that's probably all already been like all but wrapped up. So
the stuff that's being held off,
his fingerprints won't really be on those, but 2025, 26, 27. So, and for the furthermore, so probably the next featured films we see, we already know Dave Filoni is going to come out with a film of his own, kind of that Mandoverse all coming together moment movie he's going to be doing. And then future films will probably get his, at least his insight on it. So, all right, well, man, we got pretty deep on this one,
right?
It was a fun ride, though. I mean,
damn,
we probably lost some listeners, but
we teetered on being canceled.
We mean well. We again, going back to that point, we want all of us to raise. We are very supportive of inclusivity and diversity and all of that stuff. We want to see that success there. We just also want it to be done in a way that will allow it to succeed. So that's all we were trying to get across.
Yep.
But
There's, there are multiple ways of getting messages across, and forcing it is not going to, is not going to end well.
Yeah, and just seeing how not just Star Wars, but film stuff, a lot of it Disney, the negative reception it's been getting, like that's kind of what concerns me, because I don't want to see Star Wars disappearing. I don't want to see Disney, like think about it, like our childhood, some of our favorite stuff, movies we watched were Disney movies. Like we want to see success there.
And you got to quit remaking, I think the remakes, going from animated to live action, just remaking a movie or whatever, and then in that remake trying to toss
change
in
things,
those messages, is not a good recipe. Because when you think about your childhood and those animated movies that you watched, there is a certain nostalgia that comes with it.
Yeah.
And and it takes you back to an innocent time, your innocent time. And I understand that you go back and you watch Pinocchio, whoa,
yeah,
like whoa,
yikes.
Parts of Peter Pan,
yeah.
whoa. So yeah, there are parts of those stories that they don't resonate. They don't really hold a spot in today's society. But you cannot take what society has, deemed as morally right now and retroactively hold these, pieces of art, to that standard. Like you can't cancel something that was made in 1930 because it didn't include a certain sect of people. Unfortunately, that's where our society was. What you can do is you can take the framework of that story and you can modernize it and tell the framework of that story with a modern twist that now does have our moral standards in and tells those stories and does it in a very creative way. And that, I think, would do well.
I can't remember who said this, but I saw it recently. So I apologize. It was I want to say it was a sports athlete, and it was in regards to exactly what we're talking about. And they made some kind of comment about, unfortunately, and it's very unfortunate, history cannot be changed. History cannot be erased. So the intent isn't or shouldn't be to erase history. It should be to learn from history, learn from it, change, do better. Don't try to erase it. Yeah. So that's just something that really stood out to me and really resonated with me, because I feel like a lot of what we're doing in today's world is trying to eliminate the past. And when you do that, you almost eliminate the people that went through that suffering en route to make that change. And you want to honor those people and do better by those people that ended up suffering. So let's not eliminate them. Let's learn from them and do better. So I can't remember who said that. I think I saw it on Twitter or X, speaking of Elon Musk.
But that's, I think that's where, society has, that's where we need to strive to get to.
Because let's be real, we've got a long road to doing better as a society in the world.
Yeah, I mean,
but we're only going to do that together.
Yeah, I mean, if hey, like everybody used to soil themselves, right? For an extended period of your life, You didn't go.
Couple years.
You didn't go to the bathroom in a toilet for an extended period. Most people at least 2, close to 3 years, right?
Yep.
Do you, so if somebody, are you just going to remove that part or expect people to remove that? You learned, right? I mean, that's in your history that you used to soil yourself. So now if someone brings it up, like, Mike, I can't believe that you used to, you're going to bring up the fact you haven't done it in 35 years, but someone's going to bring, and I understand that in broad scheme like that, they don't fully equate, but that's
Right.
what it is historically, yes, there were bad decisions made. And based on what we know now, we know that those were bad decisions and they shouldn't have been made. But what decisions are we making right now that in 2250 are going to be looked at like, what the hell were you guys doing?
Well, and if you eliminate it, you eliminate the potential from future generations to learn from it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just going to get cyclical because they're going to look at what we did and then make some type of a tweak that all of a sudden reverts, some, for whatever reason, society is then going to revert all the way back to 300-400 years. And it's just going to, and then a couple of 100 years after that, they're going to be like, you guys remember what the hell they did during the 2250s? Like, and then they're going to, bury that and then until finally we're dinosaurs again. But yeah, there are ways to tell the stories that need to be told without alienating a large group and then attacking that alienated group for not supporting.
Yeah.
Well, if in order to support this group, I have to disparage my group, why? Who's going to do that?
Right.
Lift up your group without disparaging. You can tell stories that include shitty people and overcoming the shitty people. That's no problem. But don't just make a group the shitty people just for the sake of telling your story.
Right. Or for the sake of just balancing the scales.
Yeah. I mean, that's because there are shitty people all over the world.
There always will be.
And there will be, and they are in the.
You can't have awesome people if you don't have shitty people.
But the good people, the well-meaning people, the people that truly make the human race the greatest, far outnumber the shitty people. It's just the shitty people
are the loudest.
Scream the loudest.
I agree with that.
They scream the loudest. And the problem that, it's that old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's true. But after 2 or 3 greasings, just get rid of the fucking squeaky wheel. And now I'm not saying go out and kill people. Like, don't do that.
We are not advocating that on this show.
I'm just saying, just remove them from your life. Like, just block them out. Don't, and even if it's family, that might be very difficult. But if family is a squeaky wheel that you feel is holding you back from that next rung, or keeping you where you want to be, that other old saying, every time I feel like I'm out, they pull me back in. Well, they can't drag you down unless they're already below you. So just keep moving forward. Onward and upward. Keep moving forward. And figure out a way to live with everybody finding their own happiness. What makes me happy doesn't necessarily need to make you happy. And what makes you happy shouldn't affect me unless it actually affects me. If what makes you happy is breaking my shit, now we have issues.
And
is stealing my shit, now we have issues. But if what makes you happy is I like to skip every other Tuesday, skip away, buddy.
Well, I hate you for skipping. Just kidding.
It's
a little harsh.
I hate myself.
Well, I am a firm believer that good will prevail over evil.
Oh, yeah.
It's not necessarily an easy road or a quick road, but overall, I think good will prevail.
Yeah.
I know we've taken a long tangent away from Star Wars, and I will just say
have we though? Because it's still good versus evil.
It's true. It's still relevant. I will just say one trigger element for me is when you hear people say like something along the lines of how bad our world is today versus like how it used to be, or like how we live in such a terrible time or whatnot. That's, in my eyes, that's like such a narrow view of the expanse time that our world's been around. It's not perfect. A lot, like we already said earlier. It's a long way to still go.
Humanity is one big science experiment that we're in the middle of.
And maybe I or we are biased. Like, I was a history major in college. I know you are very knowledgeable about history, and I have to believe have a really good interest in history. I used to sit by you in history class and steal your answers in terms of what you would whisper under your breath when our teacher would ask questions, because you knew it but didn't want to answer, so I would just answer it. But if you really want to compare our world today to that time, like in the Roman time, when they would literally, for entertainment, put people in the middle of a stadium and kill each other, or be killed by animals or whatnot, and go even further back beyond that to when like attacking towns and raping and pillaging and all the stuff, to like, we are in a completely different time from there. So sure, in a narrow lens, when you look year to year, decade to decade, maybe it's not as good as it used to be, but holistically, we are in a lot better place than society was hundreds and thousands and whatever years ago. And it's a progression. It's never going to be anything immediate. We'll get better as time goes on. I don't know. So that like I said, it just triggers me when people talk about, well, I can't understand our world today. We live in such a horrible time. No, we live in what you're focusing on the negatives. If you feel that way, you're not looking at the positives. Like, look at modern day medicine, look at modern day technology.
And perception is reality. But I mean, the fact is,
I will adjust that. Your own perception is your own reality.
Well, yeah,
I always like to change that.
Yeah, your perception is what your reality is.
Yeah,
and yeah, I mean, the fact is that when you look at where society is now, there are a lot. I mean, it is a lot more, open to to different, I don't know exactly the words I'm trying to say, but think about, I just look at like homosexuality back 30, 40, 50, maybe not 30, that was the 90s, but maybe even still then. But I mean, you had to look at, within the 50 years ago, you had to be closeted. You couldn't be open about it.
Yep.
Now, yeah, you can be open most places. Again, And I mean, it goes without saying that there will always be shitty people. And so are there some
Yep.
that's still out there that that are, homophobic? Yeah. They're beneath you. Keep moving.
Well,
Don't even bother with them because they are beneath you, because it doesn't affect them. And I don't understand why they're upset about it. Your happiness
you
is
do
your
you.
happiness.
You do you.
I mean, their perception is their reality. Whatever their perception is, it shouldn't affect you. But the fact is you can be open. You can be married. So if you are, gay, lesbian, and now I know that the transsexual community is going through some stuff right now, and that. But when you see where the homosexual community was 50, 60 years ago to where they are now, and compare the two, can you honestly say that where we're at now is worse than where you were 50, 60 years ago?
And I think what's important to say on that note is it's recognized by you and me and many people that just because it's better doesn't mean that their path of life is at the same ease or
no
whatnot as ours.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning us being heterosexuals, we recognize that it might be a little easier in life for us than for someone that is homosexual or under that umbrella that you mentioned.
Yep.
But that's not to say that it hasn't progressed from where it's been, which is I think what you were trying to say.
Where we were at 50, 60 years ago in this country to where we are now. Are we perfect? No. We still have issues. I think a big issue where we are worse, I believe, we are more divided on everything. There is no, it feels, and again, my perception of where we were as a country, 50, 60 years ago with JFK and then, moving forward, was that there was more openness to compromise on certain, conversations, certain topics, at least in the political realm. You could compromise, and now, no way. It's one side or the other. That's it, and it's trickled down from the politicians to now everybody has that.
And I think that's great to say, because I think that's exactly what we are trying to say happens as a result of being force-fed or having agendas in your content, because that's what politics is all about today, is having an agenda. This is your agenda, and if you're not with us, you're against us.
Yep.
That divides. And bringing it back to Star Wars or Disney and stuff, when you have these agendas, when you have these narrow-minded focuses of what you're going to do, you're only going to create more division.
Yep.
In our eyes, that's your perception. That's my perception. We could be wrong. We'll throw that out there. We could be completely wrong. Maybe
there's a pretty good chance. Yeah.
But just in our perception, because you and I want the same thing as all of you listeners out there. We want, prosperity, success, health, everything, well-being for everyone out there. We feel that a detour from that is by having agendas. And I think politics is a perfect example of having agendas and how it polarizes.
It pushes narratives, and you push that, a certain narrative.
And you combine that with social media and where it is today, just allows people to say whatever they want to say. And
you know what pushing agendas does? It leads to Palpatine taking power.
Have to believe the Empire had a certain agenda.
You'd have to. Yeah.
So there you go. If you're pushing agendas, you are the Emperor.
Palpatine's coming back. Third time's gonna be
somehow
be a charm
Palpatine's
for
coming
him.
back.
Third time's gonna be a charm. He's gonna finally get that Death Star up and running.
The third Death Star.
Told you, third time's gonna be a charm, man.
Well, but is the Force Awakens, why am I spacing on the name of that?
Well, Star Killer Base?
Star Killer Base. Is that the third Death Star?
No. Was it? No.
Well, I mean, it wasn't called Death Star, so
I know.
But it was kind of same concept, right?
No way, man. Totally different.
All right. Well, I know we're way past your time limit, your 10:30 time limit. So I will wrap it up here. Again, I know we kind of went off topic.
We veered.
But at the same time, we didn't. It's still relevant. But it was good conversation, one way or another.
Well,
deep conversation.
Star Wars is supposed to be a reflection of, kind of society. I mean, when you think about like the political undertones that have been in Star Wars content, it all kind of carries that what society is kind of going through at that time. And so
well, all movies, all content we see is a reflection of current day society.
It should, it should be.
So let's just not be known for the era of bad storytelling in this generation, because I love Star Wars and I want more Star Wars. I want more good Star Wars.
Yeah. Or if we are in the era of bad storytelling, let's wrap this shit up by the time my kids start watching.
So is that like the Packers? Well, actually, the Packers are doing pretty good.
Doing all right, yeah.
But like, if it wasn't, let's say they weren't doing as well as they've been doing the past few years, or
you got 5 years to figure your crap out, and
because we don't want to go through another 20, 30 years of
I'll give
meaningless
you
football.
I'll give you 5 years to figure it out. All right, my daughter's 2.5, so in 5 years that puts her at 7.5, if my math is right. Yeah. So she'll be, starting to, really watch and understand. So that new content needs to be there.
So Dave Filoni, bring it for us.
Yeah.
In your new position.
That's
and
right.
Maybe eventually overtake Kathleen Kennedy and just head all of LucasFilm oriented stuff. All right.
So nice.
Maybe one day. It's a dream.
Yep.
But we will wrap it up. By the way, shout out. There was a season 2 of Andor trailer leak. I haven't watched it yet. It's not even like a legit trailer. It's someone like recording it. I kind of want to watch it, but I kind of want to wait. But it makes me excited for Andor season 2, because that's an amazing show.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite of all the shows that have released. Not to play favorites, but I am. Anyways, I'll just talk through our social media handles really quick. So you can find us on Twitter at DetBlockAA23pod, on Instagram at detention_block_AA_23, and then our Facebook group and YouTube channels, Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. Bring us your likes, follows, comments, downloads, subscriptions, reviews, all of it and any of it. We greatly appreciate it. Any little thing that you do helps separate us from the hundreds of Star Wars podcasts and anything out there. Not to pull support from other podcasts and everything. Please go support them. Doing what we do, I understand how much work gets put into it. So, but anything you can do to help us, we greatly appreciate. With that, any final thoughts from you, Greg? Or holidays are right around the corner. Do you have any holiday Christmas trees or anything up?
No.
No? Are you going to put anything up?
Yeah, we'll put a tree up at some point.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Great Life Day, which totally missed that. I think that was November 17th. Star Wars Life Day. It's a holiday, so hope you had a great Life Day. With that, we are Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Mike, joined by Greg, and previously joined by Dustin. Happy birthday, Dustin. Have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, and we look forward to hopefully talking with you all next week, where we'll talk more Star Wars. All right, with that, have a great night, and may the Force be with you.